Hello and welcome to Healing Between Thoughts, the place where you're going to find all sorts of actionable tips on how to get over this broken heart of the whole world and all the pain going on inside of you and all the bonking on the head that you're getting and everything else. Because when it comes down to it all, it's all love. So welcome to my friend Geoff Woliner. If you have not been following Geoff has been putting out just nonstop transmissions of readings from the Joe Blow Tarot deck and has been also hanging out with other friends and lovers of all that's holy and unholy on the ledge and talking about that. So you can find out things about Geoff down in the show notes, and I suggest you subscribe to his channel. Here we are, and Geoff, welcome.
Lydia, thank you so much for that intro. And for all the folks watching, I want to put an extra emphasis on unholy, a special emphasis with a little bit of seasoning on it. I want to bake that a little bit longer. So when you take that first bite of unholy, you're like, there we go. That's right.
So there's something that I've been saying lately, and it is that you're not going to have a shift. You might have a shift, but unless you have a radical shift in your belief. And I put something out there, and Geoff and I talk a lot, but there's this I said radical belief. You need this in order to heal. It is the secret sauce. And Geoff said, yeah, I wouldn't have believed that until I did. And so yeah, that's how. The funny thing about it, Geoff, is that when you know that stuff that you've gotten over, that you've launched yourself past, that you've somehow miraculously changed, miraculously healed from, miraculously been scooped out of the claws of death, whatever it is, like, how do we get there? How do we get to that place where we're on the other side? Like it's not by preparation.
Well, it's a loaded question with many answers. And well, here's the good news. Like all things, there are many paths back home. And so if you are out there and you are hurting physically, psychologically, emotionally, with your sports betting, whatever's got you down, whatever's got you behind the 8 ball, and you feel it is just utterly insurmountable, there is more than one way to tackle this. So for me, to come right back to what Lydia was saying, it had to come directly into belief. Now, I'm from New York, which means cynicism is baked into my cake. It is in the blood. It is in the DNA. Lydia understands this. This is what you grow up around. This is who you and what you become. This is what your zeitgeist turns you into. And everything is show me. Like the show me state in Missouri, but in New York, show me. I'm not going to believe it until I see it. And that's the bottom line. But in order to truly heal, you have to invert that entirely. You have to believe it in order to see it. So the first thing is, if you are in that situation, you have to want to believe it. And you have to want to believe that it can get better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, here's the keys to what you want, and you're not going to get there without these keys. So you might as well just take them, even if they're slimy and too hot to touch and covered in blood. Take the keys.
Take the keys. I'll tell you all something happened a few years ago, and this is what truly changed my mind, paradigm shift, energy, you name it. So I had the grand awakening in the fall of 2021. Lucky me. As anybody who here has been through that grand awakening can tell you, it is not what you see on YouTube not what you see on Instagram. It is the journey of 10,000 miles barefoot through broken glass, and that's just the first half of it. But after I had this grand awakening and I felt, oh my God, I have all the answers now. I remember who I am, where I'm from, what this is all about. You ride that first euphoric wave, then that crash hits. And it looks a little bit different for everybody. Lydia, do you have that too after the first kind of like?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So tell me about yours. What's your, so yeah, you've got this euphoria. Woo! And then.
Euphoria was everywhere. I had a calling that took me to Texas, and I got on the road and I went. I literally started driving to Texas on a whim because the voices in my head, like Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams, I followed them.
Right. And for any of you out there who I think that a number of people probably realize the interesting sort of irony about this, but a dead set New Yorker just getting on the road and going to Texas is it. Of all places. Yeah. So go on.
A little incongruous, to be generous about it. So I'm about halfway there and I'm driving through the Mississippi Delta. And all of a sudden I feel like the gates of heaven open up and swallow me whole. I no longer knew where I was, what I was doing, who was even driving the car at that point, like a true Jesus take the wheel moment. Yeah. He's like, step aside. I got this. He's just kind of chilling, with and I'm here floating away into this grand singularity of ours. I feel completely swallowed by it. People describe a near-death experience. I had a near-life experience, and it was what people describe on psychedelics. And yet here I am, sober as a priest on Sunday, and I'm driving through the South, and all of a sudden I'm out of my body. In that moment, I found the answers to everything I'd ever asked, everything I'd ever sought, wondered, dreamed about. It all came back, and none of it felt like a discovery. It all felt like a deep remembrance. And I knew exactly what I was, who I was, what this character was meant to do here, all of it. I come back in my body and I'm just riding high. I'm riding high, like, oh, I got it. This is great. Fast forward 1 month, I get back home. Now, for context's sake, I start this trip and I'm about 205 pounds. And this is important. Not because I'm talking to my doctor here, but because this is contextual. So I get home, and just for the hell of it, every New Year's I weigh myself just to kind of see what I'm starting out at. So I weighed myself, and I'm at 193, which I thought was a little bit odd. I just dropped 12 pounds, and I don't know why or how. I certainly was not eating healthy over the Christmas break. That I can guarantee you. And here I was, 12 pounds down. I'm like, well, hey, I'm awakened now. Maybe the gods are smiling upon me and making me a little bit more svelte for this great 2022 that's waiting for me. And here we go. Okay, wonderful. This is the price you pay for awakening. Sign me up. Let's keep it rolling. Well, a month later, I weigh myself again, and now I'm 184. So that's bizarre. Again, I'm not eating well. I'm not working out a whole lot aside from like daily walks, but I'm not changing anything. And I'm now down almost 21 pounds from where I started just 6 weeks prior. This keeps going. March, April, I keep losing and losing and losing and losing weight. I'm losing more and more and more weight. At this point, I'm starting to get concerned. I go to different doctors. I get blood work. I get an endoscopy. I get all the things. I get imaging, everything. Everything is fine. Nobody can put their finger on what's going on. All I know is that as I'm losing the weight, I'm now having trouble eating. I'm now having trouble drinking. I'm now having trouble holding my balance. All these different things start happening. I'm starting to get searing, and I mean searing pains in different parts of my body, almost like knives are stabbing me. And some other pains like I'm being hit with a meat tenderizer, like I owed somebody money. All these different things are unfolding right now, and I can't get to the bottom of it. And now I am just literally fading away. We get to the midway point of the year, and a friend of mine affectionately refers to me as the amazing disappearing Geoff. Wasn't wrong. You gotta have a laugh.
Kind of funny. Like, you can't make this shit up.
You can't make this shit up. The middle of the year comes around, and I'm looking at the mirror. I don't recognize the face that I see. I don't fit into any of my clothes anymore. I'm now down to 148. from 205, and I have no medical explanation for it. All I know is I'm literally falling apart, and I go to see my acupuncturist. You know, it's like, help me, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope, truly.
Yeah.
And you know, the Jedi can appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So my Obi-Wan, she says, she gives me a look I've never seen on her face. She's a very level-headed person. But this is a look of deep concern. It is a look that says you don't have a whole lot of time left.
Yeah.
And she's taken all these, you know, and she says, I don't know how to tell you this, but your organs are shutting down. And your body is literally beginning the death process has been underway for you. And this is what I see in patients who don't have much time left to go. Well, that's a hell of a thing to hear on a Tuesday. So at this point, I've tried every conceivable supplement. I've tried to eat more, which I really can't in my condition. And I've tried all the different things they tell you to try, and none of it works. The force was super weak with this one. I can't even begin to tell you. That's the problem. There was no force. The force came and it went, and that's it. So I'm doing everything I possibly can to try to get back on the wagon, but nothing is working. So then she asks me a very important question, my acupuncturist. She says, do you believe that you can heal? I said, hell no, I don't believe that I can heal. I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know why. I know I'm dying. I know I've tried everything. So why would I believe that I can heal? I've listened to every doctor. I've done all the things and nothing's working. Clearly, I'm not meant to survive. So that's okay. That is what it is. Then she asked another question. She said, what would it look like if you did believe? I said, what if I were Santa Claus? You know, so the New Yorker's coming back out again. Like, what is this shit? What would it look like? I don't know. What would it look like? You know, I'm too cynical and dying to really like believe this stuff. But then I get home that night, and then I'm making plans for my departure because I'm literally leaving this world. So I look up into the sky once more, and I said, I don't know why the hell you gave me that glimpse last year. Maybe it was just show me what I'm coming home to soon, and that this is your way of bringing me home. But if it's not, and I'm meant to survive this somehow, I'm willing to meet you halfway, and I'm willing to work with you, and I'm willing to listen to what Amy said, and I'm willing to actually believe and ask the question openly with an actual open heart. Okay, what would it look like if I started to heal? And that night, I walked into my office and I received a download for my first Path to Perfectia book. And I started writing it. It just flowed through me. And as I'm writing it, the energy, the vibration of this book, this story, these characters starts to bring me back to life. I go up to New York for Thanksgiving the next week, and I find myself eating normally again for the first time in a year. I find myself living normally again for the first time in a year. Christmas comes around, I put 5 pounds back on. New Year's comes around, I put 3 more. And as 2023 unfolded, I kept believing and asking the question, what would it look like if I could heal? And as it happened, I started believing it more and more and more. And from that point forward, I've been in the best shape of my life. And the doctors still don't know what the hell happened.
You never do. And it's not necessarily their fault. It's just where it's the system that they put themselves in. You will not find any of this in any medical journals. Yeah. So all your nerves were firing and saying, "Danger, Will Robinson," and your organs were shutting down. And it doesn't make sense except when it does, when there's this total reality that hits you. So for me, the radical belief, I still didn't necessarily put it together until later, but I had a surgery that I had to have done. It was from a car accident before, and it was a wild knee surgery, but it was just a knee surgery. You know, this isn't like we weren't replacing parts of my brain or my heart. It was my knee, and it just suddenly crumpled to the ground one day. So lo and behold, I had lost my posterior cruciate ligament in the accident before, but it had been hanging on by a thread, and, hiking and biking and things like that just built up the muscles around it, and it was fine until it wasn't. So I went into this surgery, and I was going to go off and do some musical things that I had gotten into that were really big, and it was an 11-hour surgery, and right before I went under, I saw the anesthesiologist. And the anesthesiologist wasn't the anesthesiologist I had met before. And I just completely got this like gut feeling that was, this guy is an idiot. And it was like foreboding, but also like scathingly judgmental. Turned out later, 11 hours, well, more than 11 hours later, I woke up and I was just, really sick from all the anesthesia, and I didn't know what was going on. But the nurse said, I've never seen a tourniquet left on that long. And so I went home, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. After a while, and my leg was the size of Toledo. It was so big for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, it just went, and there was nothing left of the leg. From the hip down to the foot, it was only bones. And same thing, like more pain than it was possible, and really specific. Knives, really long and thick and slightly warm and wet knives going through the bottom of my foot up to my knee. And it just didn't stop. And I was howling. And my metabolism was going, and my weight went, boom. Of course, I didn't have a leg. I mean, your legs actually weigh a lot, but, and no one seemed to know what was going on except the nurse. That same anesthesiologist decided to give me a lumbar block and stick things, give me a bunch of Percocet. I took all of the Percocet at the University of New Hampshire's entire supply of Percocet, and it didn't touch this pain because this was nerve death, but I didn't know that at that point. So lawyer was involved saying, oh, we got this, it's a big case, massive malpractice, and your life cut short and all. And then suddenly they didn't call back. And I called them up and I said, what's up? And they said, who are you? And suddenly I had no support in the world. I had unbelievable pain. And they finally said, hey, yeah, we remember, we got your stuff. There's nothing here. You're just weird. You're just sorry, you just got weird nerves. And so, and I had sent in all my medical records like a naive person in my 20s. And it was a, how I say this, they sent back the medical records and they were all changed. Now, when I sent it to them, it said, and this is what the nurse showed me, what was going on, that the tourniquet is supposed to be taken off every 2 hours, right? And it was taken off just, to let some blood in, and then it's put right back on. The surgeon's busy doing what the surgeon's doing. This is not something the surgeon deals with. It's the anesthesiologist. And mine just went out to lunch after 4 hours and didn't return. I slumped under the bar. I don't know. And it doesn't matter. But later on, he took no responsibility and was like, I don't know. You're just messed up, dude. Nobody could figure out what was going on. And when the medical records came back and they showed that the tourniquet was taken on and off for the whole 11 hours, I went to find the nurse, and the nurse disappeared. Like, I couldn't find her anywhere. So when I went to the hospital and just said, this nurse, and they had no record of her ever having worked there. Like, she absolutely fell off the planet. So, it's like there was nothing going right. And my family was in an uproar, and they were saying, you got to sue the lawyer, you got to sue the doctor, you got to sue everyone. And the ex-husband said, you're never going to be out of pain. That's what the neurologist said. There's no way you can heal this. No way. Your nerves are gone. Your nerves will grow back maybe 1/8 of an inch because you're in your 20s, but after that they won't. And I was missing like 1 meter of nerves, like all of them, down to bone. So there was no chance of me ever walking again. There was no chance of me ever being out of pain. And I went to the I got a download. Like you said, there was a download, and I just suddenly saw myself out in the garden in bare feet and standing there and completely whole. And I said, no, I'm fine. I can walk. And I spent the next 1.5 years doing it. And the thing about that is, it was a download, but it was also like an act of radical defiance, because there was just too much shit going on. So, and that's that point, like that there's too much going on. Either you believe or you listen to everybody else who's they think they're supporting you. It looks like they're supporting you, but they're not. Mm-hmm. And if I had taken the path to litigate, no way. I would not have healed. And instead, I grew back 3 feet of nerves, sympathetic, sensory, and motor, their sheaths and everything, in 1.5 years. And if anyone asks how I did it, I did physical therapy every day. I screamed and yelled. I was not pleasant to be with. I had acupuncture. It was the first sleep I got in 2 weeks. And I ate a lot of raw eggs. A lot of raw eggs. And that's it. Like, there was really nothing else. There was nothing else. That's it. In medical journals, you're not going to find, hey, you got nerve damage, just eat some raw eggs. It's not there.
It's not. And for all you watching, the moral of the story is really simple. If you want to cure nerve pain, salmonella is the way to go. That's it. If you take nothing else from this story, that is the big learn.
Yep. So, but what is that that's going on? Really, there's this. It's a radical shift in belief. It's radical belief. It's belief in something radical. It's utter defiance of what it is, the path that you're going down, and slapping you across the face and sending you to any of the other paths so that you can go to something that you really see that you want.
I think that's exactly it. And I think it's ultimately, you want to get woo here. I think it's time.
Let's time to get woo.
Let's get woo.
That's what this channel is all about. That's why I started this show. I'm like, I'm sick of this tame stuff. It's time to get woo.
I'm here for it. Yeah, we've been normies too long. So 25 minutes in, let's take the masks off and reveal the nutcases that we are. So it really comes down, I believe, to the intentionality behind shifting timelines. And if you're a subscriber, and this is the fun part of the woo-woo when you start, intermeshing it with principles scientific principles, quantum physics principles of potentiality and multiversality and all these different things kind of swirling around, you as a particle of creation that is experiencing itself, you can shift into a different perspective. And that's what healing really is. It is shifting into a different perspective from the same particle. And so some people can call it a dimension, some call it a timeline, you can call it a perspective, whatever you want to call it, but it's the same idea. But it has to begin with that belief and intention, because if you don't have the belief and intention, then you're stuck in the same dimension, timeline, particle perspective, which says, this is how it is. I'm fucked. There's no way out. Show's over. And this happens to people in a lot of different situations in life. This happens to people, obviously we talk about it a lot on the ledge, people who are, deeply suicidal. They have a fixed perspective of, I'm screwed. There's no way out. That's that. And the way out is to shift the dimension. So if you're looking to heal whatever you're looking to heal, you first have to mentally, physically, from your heart, you have to shift into the what if I could live in that different perspective, in that different plane where I do heal. And once you can open that up, I call it like vibroplasticity. Once you can open up your vibration to the plasticity of what if, then suddenly the what if can actually show up in front of your face and say, yeah, good question. What if? With those crazy stalker eyes, like, yeah, what if?
Your not anesthesiologist, sorry, your acupuncturist, starts with an A, but very, very, very different. Your acupuncturist was really kind of like it was the catalyst for that, just asking you that question, and probably a lot more like that. It's like that was there for you and allowed you to make that shift. For me, I saw the future. I saw the other reality, and I believed it all at once. And to go between the woo and the not woo, that this thing up here, which is just way overused and has way too much power, really thinks it's in charge, and it's not. It's just trying to keep you safe, keep you safe, keep you safe, keep you safe, keep you safe. And it doesn't shut up. So when you go and give it something like an alternate timeline, a different place where you are, it can't take cognitive dissonance. And it will suddenly help you to do everything that you need to do to get where you need to go. It suddenly accepts the energy downloads. It attracts you to the right people. It attracts you to the right energy. It makes you eat a lot of raw eggs, and it makes you go and do things that you otherwise would have told you not to before, because that's too goofy, that's dumb, that's whatever it is.
Without a doubt. And that's where that is the manifestation of that cynicism. And I truly believe that the reason, a lot of people are cynical and more so than they used to be across the board. But I think New Yorkers in particular, that cynicism is born from a mass level nervous system dysregulation. People being stacked on top of each other, and you're in constant animal fight or flight mode when that happens. You're in constant competition for resources. You have to scan for threats all around you and above you and below you. And you're constantly in that state of something bad can happen to me. I need to be hyper vigilant to make sure that it can't. And when that starts bleeding out into the way you think about the world and your place in it, that naturally gives its way into cynicism, which is, yeah, sure, okay, fine. Because if you have an open energy there and you just believe the best can happen and you believe the best in people, there's a hustler around every corner waiting to take advantage of you, and you learn really young, that's not a good way to survive. And your nervous system definitely learns that, which is, I got to be up on guard 24/7 up in this mug or I'm screwed. So then you're in a situation where you have to loosen up the knots. You have to believe it can get better. And your body's like, the hell we will. What are you, nuts? If I start believing we're going to get better, I open myself up to attack. I open myself up to danger. Not happening, Jack. So you got to fight biology on it. And that is a difficult thing, my friend. So if you're having trouble with it, just know I'm going to do the Goodwill Hunting thing. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Yeah. It's that fighting with our brain thing, but it's whether you know it or not, and being able to have a little distance on it can hyperanalyze this, and then there's the downloads as well. It's like your heart, actually going into your heart, and that's really hard for a lot of us. We think we're there. We think we're in touch with our heart, but we're not. We're stuck in the story, and there's a big story with a lot of cultural momentum, and it is not the way it is. It feels like it's the way it is because everything, just like this radical belief change, anything you believe is just going to be everything you see. And like Geoff said, it's this thing where when you're all stuffed in the same place with a bunch of low vibrations, you're gonna feel it. And to go further with that idea, we are one. We are one organism. And this is like, if you're a toenail, you're not going to have much thought of what is going on in one of the auditory cilia in your ear. But they're in the same organism. And further is some of these things, if anything, you're probably not going to notice too much on the toenails in the ear, or the ear and the toenail, but they're still connected, and there's more direct connections, even without like direct awareness of one and the other. When one goes disappearing, or one just suddenly gets sick, the rest say, Mayday, why are we in chaos? And that's kind of like what's going on in humanity and with all the energy of the earth. And so you might notice there are a whole bunch of people being like coming out and being woo and radiating love and fixing what is hurting by saying we can believe in something more.
It's a magical time.
It's a super magical time.
It's really something. And one thing that I always try to take heart about in these times is that, first of all, these times are actually really objectively no more dark or chaotic than they've ever been. It's just in our face 24/7 because we have these devices that tell us about every single thing happening everywhere.
That's right. Yeah.
And so we have this perception that things are just unraveling and they're more violent and more chaotic. And this has all been going on for a really long time. But during the Armenian genocide back, 100 years ago, people who were on a farm in Nebraska were not being fed news of what was happening in Armenia every second of every day. They were just worrying about making sure the corn was okay. And like that was their stress level, was the corn. And it began and ended there. Pretty much was that. And like whatever family drama they were going on with on the barn, like that was the thing. They weren't concerned with what was happening in Armenia. They weren't concerned with what was going on in the Balkans. They certainly weren't concerned with what was happening in China. They weren't worried about any of that. They were worried about their corn. Right now, we worry about our corn and the drama and Armenia and China and Russia. We worry about everything all the time.
Yeah.
So we're dysregulated and we're over the top. But this time that we're alive right now, what's beautiful about it, even though it's all being fed to us 24/7, this also gives an opportunity to transmute it that we haven't had before, because people like Lydia and I can connect in a way we could not have 100 years ago. And people who we're friends with from abroad, we can connect in a way we couldn't 100 years ago or even 20 years ago.
Yeah.
How awesome is that?
That is incredibly awesome. And I think that that is exactly the instigator. I'd go further to say that's exactly the instigator that we needed in order to shift. So this is on a micro level, on a personal level, on a macro level. It's all the same thing. Like when you're in Nebraska and you don't know what's going on in Armenia, you stay pretty regulated. You're pretty much okay. You're in your story. You're chugging along. And people in Armenia, they're shifting in one way or another, and they're in it, but they don't get the benefit of the people chilling out in Nebraska. When it's all in your face, everybody is having a reason to fight back. And whether you fight back with love or you fight back with defiance, you fight back with a radical belief, it's the same thing. You are shifting, and you're shifting with this, I mean, it's a lot like spite. Now, spite has some, I'll prove it to you. Now, there's no, what we're talking about, there is no real proving it to anyone else. It's just ourselves. It's that cognitive dissonance, which we cannot manage with. Our brains go crazy with that. And suddenly our bodies are switched to actually support our belief. By having something drastic really makes it easier. It really, like if you hadn't just been told that you were shutting down, that you were heading toward the pearly gates, or whatever it was, or Valhalla, or whatever your belief,
Press lanes.
Whatever. If you weren't told that, you wouldn't have had a challenge to it. If I wasn't having a sword shoved up through my foot 24/7 and told that it's just me and I was never going to be different than that, I wouldn't have had a challenge to that, but I did. And now everybody knows. I think everybody knows that there are genocides happening, there are bombs flying, there are a lot of protests, and you see them all the time, and it makes you want to flip that switch. So the question is, are we able to, as a culture, as a society, as a single organism of life, make that switch?
I believe we are, and I think we're slowly seeing the ice thaw. It's a process, and because the iceberg is still enormous, and like you said, it's this cultural inertia and built up for so long, it's a gigantic frozen iceberg. But if we can start to shift even on the margins, and the margins are what ultimately do it, from this judgment to curiosity, that's where all the magic really is. Because let's say, we see something happening in the world, and we're really divided over like the things that are brought to our face. And I really want to emphasize that too, the things that are brought to our face, because there are things that are so much worse than what's brought to our face that are currently unfolding that nobody knows about because they're not brought to our face. Yeah. So we're very, very selective in like what we think is terrible and what we don't even know about. But that's neither here nor there. Just wanted to get that in for some weird reason. But anyway, it's ultimately, in order to really make that shift, has to start on the individual level. So let's say you're looking at something happening in the world and you're really pissed off about it and you don't like it and you think it's a grave, grave injustice. Okay, cool. A great question to ask is not what can I do about it, but rather what caused it? Truly, what actually caused it? What caused the behavior that I disapprove of? What caused the sequence of events that I think are aberrant? And really dig into that honestly and openly, and get both sides of that story to truly understand where the midpoint is on that truth. And then the more you do that, the more heat you start taking out of your own emotional reaction to it. Doesn't mean you still like the thing that's happening. It's not meant to shift you into like, oh, that's totally cool, that's going down. But the more you understand it, the more you can actually humanize those who are behind it. And then you can start to see it on a deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper level. Now, the cool thing that happens once you start doing that is eventually the more layers you get down, the more of yourself you start seeing in the people you disapprove of. And to Lydia's point, you realize we're all just one organism acting out a play. And like all roads always lead back to that. And then if you get there, here's where the real fun part happens. Once you get to this is all a play, you realize even the people who are playing the ones that I call the villains are just actors playing villains.
Yeah. Yeah. And can you imagine, like, you don't remember any of this, but sometime in the past, your soul said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be Hitler. And you do it. Like, imagine that. And the force that you put on everyone in order, and the things that you endure as a little person in order to become that dictator and to become that hate. And everybody shifts because of it. And you might say, yeah, but look where we are now. You know, what did we learn? But it's all just, it's all a play. It's all a play.
It's all a play, and it's all a play. And any good play. And I want you all to think about this. Again, as you think about what's happening in the world, and I know almost everybody out there has taken a side on pretty much everything. There's very few people out there who are looking at any headline right now from anywhere in the world and saying, you know what, that needs further analysis before I decide how I feel about that. No one's there right now. And that's okay. This is how it goes. So as you're going through all this, think about a play that you've seen, a movie, a show, a Broadway show, whatever it is, that didn't have heroes and villains, that didn't have a point of contrast and conflict to be overcome. Imagine if there were a show where everybody just sang Kumbaya and got along all day and everything was great and there was no challenge. You'd say, this sucks, I want my money back, and you'd storm the hell out of there, and rightfully so. So how could the universe put on a show that could be worse than that? It couldn't. It wants to put on the best show it can. Ergo, here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, bringing this back, what does this have to do with healing? Well, a lot. We're talking about whatever. A lot of what you've been saying, Geoff, is that, you know, when we build the bridge from our side and just, you know, step onto we can't build the bridge from the other side, but we meet one another there and it de-escalates. And this is like the emotional healing that we need in order to vibrate at this higher level is in that place. So there's the de-escalation, for my part in the particular example that I gave, just because, and I gave that example because like yours, it's turning around something that doctors say is done, right? Yeah, the anesthesiologist, part of me at first was saying, well, if I don't litigate, if I don't fix things, he's going to kill someone. And that's possible. That's possible. But there's also whether or not he showed his face and accepted responsibility for that or anything else. He was right where he was. And it doesn't matter. And whatever brought him to that place and whatever he wasn't provided, or whatever hurt he underwent, or whatever strange stroking of his ego that he had, was right where he was. It doesn't matter. I don't know, and I have compassion for it.
And that's a beautiful and evolved perspective, honestly. And I think if we can start doing that in little things in our lives, you know, forget the big stuff. Just think about a friend who pissed you off, you know, or a relative who said something you really didn't like. And it's so easy to just hold that grudge. And God knows I've been there. Still there in some respects. So this is not a sermon on the mount here. This is, but this is just reality. This is what
we're in the middle. We're in the, as it's called, the messy middle. Yeah.
We're in the messy middle. You know, we're unfolding, and none of us are perfect. And none of us are ever going to be perfect, because to come back to the play, you show me a character that's perfect, and I'll show you a character that the audience doesn't relate to and doesn't really like, which is why we've seen the rise of like kind of the anti-hero over the past couple of decades. So as we're moving through this and we have this opportunity to show like one little thaw of ice in our own life, it's a great opportunity to take it. Now, where healing comes into all this, and this is the really cool part about healing, is that if you are dealing with a conflict or an illness or something you're trying to move past, that's also part of the play. And this is the all watching itself, wanting to get past that point of conflict. What healing is the best part of the movie. Healing is, all right, well, we've gone through all the shit in the first half, and now we're in this awful place, and you're identifying fully with the character now, which is great because that's what makes the movie fantastic. You're identifying with the character, and now you're saying, oh, I would love for that character to overcome this. Like, that's where the payoff is in all this. So healing is the payoff in the movie. Healing is the payoff in the play. So if you can lean into that and start to believe that the second half of the movie is about to turn and it's about to come in, you start calling in the second half of the movie, and you give the universe the best show anywhere.
Yeah. You know, I'm thinking about this and there's the soft shift and the hard shift, like the big radical shift. And we've kind of wandered into talking about both of them right now, where you're, for the character in the movie, there's the radical shift, right? But you're not the character in the movie. And that's the place where a lot of us rest with, oh, but the pain, oh, but the agony, oh, but the injustice. How can this happen? And until you get upset, really upset, like really like heart-wrenchingly sad, or really angry, and you say, I defy this. Mm-hmm. You don't have the radical shift in belief, but you can experience it and have it. You can watch something, and that's where movies are kind of like, because we see them and we internalize them, but yet we have, this thing saying, but it's just a movie. Mm-hmm. That ain't real.
Yep. Paradox. The whole thing is a paradox, isn't it? It's you're simultaneously, the actor, producer, director, writer, everything. You're the choreographer, you're the key grip, you're all of it at once, producing, writing, thinking, imagining, and living it as it's unfolding, all at the exact same time. So on one hand, this is where the Buddha's great middle way comes in, is this idea of you have to be here and there at the same exact time and meet right here in this place of embodiment and integration. Because I feel like there's a lot of us out there who are living in, what you can only affectionately refer to as 3D, which is that world of just everything I see is just what it is. And I'm a victim of my life, and everything sucks, and just whatever, what are you going to do? Okay, there's no greater purpose, no greater plan. I didn't choose to be here, whatever. And then you have that hard shift the other way, which is the folks who are living entirely in that kind of 5D, Lala, where they, they bug off to the Himalayas for 9.5 years. And, they're just sitting in an ashram all day. And like, I don't want to live my life. I don't want to be my character. I'm just going to get it all. Or they're just, spend their all day on different types of psychedelics. And I'm a big proponent of psychedelics, not the dog psychedelics at all, but no connection with their actual life, with the people in their life, with their interface at all. But when you can bring them together and say, I am this character, I am living this life, I am connected with these people in this place, in this body, but I can sprinkle some of that 5D seasoning on that and realize, ooh, there's miracles within that, and there's luminosity within that, and there's excitement, and there's joy, and there's possibility within that. Now we're cooking with oil.
Yeah, that's that 4D place in the middle where we're shifting, but some are where you actually choose to not just kumbaya in the Himalayas, and there's nothing wrong with that, but some of us have to actually be talking about this so that others have a chance to shift, because we're not all in the same place. Same organism, there are new cells. there are, you keep growing that toenail. You know, it's all, we all have to meet in the middle in order to actually see. And that's what I'm doing in I'm doing a course starting tomorrow on healing, and it's a 7-week course, and part of it is not just, there's like 12 modalities of healing I'm doing in that and teaching, but being surrounded by everybody healing, that's where it is.
It's pure magic when that happens. And people don't believe this, and I understand why. But if you heal yourself, you heal the world, because we are one organism, and everything everybody does. And even if you don't believe in the woo, that's fine. Let's just talk about this on a very, I would say, empirical, materialist level. If you heal yourself, and whatever that looks like, if you heal your physical malady, if you heal the fractured relationship with your sister, if you heal whatever is awry within your own life, or even get on the path to healing, because nobody's ever truly healed, but if you get on the path to healing, then what happens is you start to radiate that out in the way you speak, in the way you interact with people, in the way you move. If you're a little bit less bitter about your life, you will be nicer to the woman at the dry cleaners. And if you're nicer to her, she will probably be a little nicer to the next customer who walks in, who will then be a little bit nicer to her daughter, who will then be a little bit nicer to her older brother, and who will be a little bit nicer to the dog. And this is how it works. But if you are coming from a place of, I'm pissed off about everything, I'm unhealed, I'm this and that, and then you radiate that out, and then that goes downstream in the other direction too.
Yeah.
We have unbelievable power if we choose to take it and realize it all starts with us. And the things that you're concerned about out in the distance, this is the hardest thing for anybody to swallow, has been for me. I was an activist in my 20s. You can't want it more than they do. That's the biggest thing. You can't want it for them more than they want it for them. All you can do is focus on your own sphere of influence and be the kindest, most healed version of yourself, and that will radiate out. You want to love them, love you, and it will end up loving them.
There's a saying that I've had, which is lift yourself, lift the world, and then the world in turn lifts you back. And it's a little different than what people typically say is lift others and it lifts you, but you gotta lift yourself first. It has to start here, and there's nothing selfish about that. We're being selfish by taking care of everyone else, if you want to, really flip this around, because ultimately we want that relationship for us. We want that love, that support, that admiration, that gratitude, whatever it is. It's all, we are selfish, and selfish isn't a bad word. I think the things that we say are selfish, maybe that's not the right word for it. There's pain there, and has nothing to do with the selfishness. If we actually love the self and heal the self, it does radiate out. Absolutely. So, Geoff, I feel like what I have to give to the world with my purpose and my everything that I radiate is love and compassion. We'll call them my superpowers. How about yours?
Ooh, superpowers. Well, I would say, and this all happened post near life experience and then post near death experience, which came all, one after the other. To me, it's the ability now to see the game, to see the dream, and to live a lucid dream. And then hopefully by living a lucid dream and following through on all the fun that I want to have within this lucid dream, it's broadcasting a signal to others that gives them permission to do the same, realizing there's one person out there who they're seeing who's just enjoying the journey, as difficult as it is at times. but still leaning into that inner childlike joy that we had that said, this whole thing is just a big ball of Play-Doh that we get to play with because we're here to do it. And I want to give everybody else out there just that subconscious permission to do the same.
Yeah, I love that. If we're busy being in the Play-Doh instead of doing what we must with the Play-Doh, if we actually are just in the Play-Doh and having a good time, resting when we want, getting intoxicated by the Play-Doh, playing with the Play-Doh, sculpting the Play-Doh, and being in awe of the Play-Doh, consequences happen, and sometimes they hit us, right? So things will still get buffeted here and there by the world, but you'll be like, okay, I'll deal with this, but dude, the Play-Doh.
Yeah,
just get back to
it. And that's it too. It's keeping that sense of balance also is the recognition and the love that shit's gonna happen. Yeah. It's life. You're gonna get sick, you're gonna get hurt, people you love are going to die. You're going to experience all kinds of difficulties, and there's absolutely no way out of that, and that's okay. Because that is a feature, not a bug.
It is okay. And it's all part of it. It's actually all good. Like there is no bad. There's just all this shift.
There's all the shift. And this is the analogy I love to use all the time. That imagine you're a fan of a team. Let's say you're a Yankees fan because you have no soul. And let's say one year the Yankees go 162 and nothing. They don't lose a game. And then they sweep their way, win the World Series. They don't like, this is the greatest year ever. Oh my God. And then they do it again next year. You're riding high. And they do it again next year. You're like, okay. And then do it again. And let's say it goes 10 years in a row, you haven't lost the game. And it hasn't even been competitive. At some point, you're going to want a team to push you. Let's say they push you, but you still win. Okay. Let's say you do that for another 10 years. At some point, you're going to say, well, what would it be like if we lost the game? I think that'd be just so fun. How interesting and different would that be? And you lose a game. You're like, oh, wow. Holy shit. We lost the game. How fun is that? We lost the game. But now you're still winning the World Series. But then you say, ooh, wouldn't it be interesting if we didn't even make the World Series? What would that be like? And then you start playing that game. And next thing you know, what would it be like if we were the worst team in the league, which we could only pray for with the Yankees? What would it be like if we were the worst team in baseball? And you would want to experience that because you hadn't before. And then at some point, you're the bottom feeding team. And now you're going to think to yourself, okay, well, now we're bottom feeders. How fun will it be to climb back to the top? And friends, that's where we are right now in the human journey. We are bottom feeders in the league, but climbing our way back to the top for the joy of climbing our way back to the top. So enjoy the journey.
It's all in the journey. And with that, I call this a wrap. Thank you so much for being here, Geoff. And I hope you all got something out of this that challenged your belief of whatever it is that's getting you right now. And I feel you. I'm saying I get it. You know, there's a lot that hurts, but you can shift this. All right. And with that wrap, I'll see you next week. Ciao.